November 9th began quietly in the Bay Area. Then, more than 30 earthquakes struck within hours, shaking communities from Berkeley to the San Ramon Valley. Scientists logged magnitudes up to 3.8, clustered deep along the notorious Hayward Fault. Sudden seismic swarms like this raise questions. Is this just the planet settling, or an omen of something bigger? The real story starts now. At 3:17 in the morning, the first tremor registered deep beneath the East Bay Hills, just a faint blip on the seismographs. Within minutes, another, slightly stronger quake rattled the same stretch of crust. By sunrise, the USGS event catalog had already logged a dozen earthquakes, each stamped with precise seconds, their magnitudes ticking upward from 1.7 to the low 2s. The pattern was unmistakable, a swarm, not a single shock, unfolding in real time. Between 5 and 8 in the morning, the tempo accelerated. Seismologists tracked clusters of events so tightly spaced that their waveforms overlapped on regional monitors. At 6:12, a magnitude 2.6 struck near the Berkeley Hills, followed by a 2.9 just 2 minutes later. By 7:30, the catalog showed more than 20 distinct events, most centered at depths between 6 and 10 kilometers. Each one carried its own event ID, a digital fingerprint in the growing archive. The pace showed no sign of slowing. At 8:23, a magnitude 3.1 jolted residents in Oakland. Its arrival echoed seconds later by a 2.8 to the southeast. Reports of shaking trickled in through the Did You Feel It portal, mapping the reach of each tremor across neighborhoods and city blocks. The swarm's largest event, a magnitude 3.8, struck at 9:42 in the morning, drawing the attention of both local newsrooms and national seismic networks. In the span of just 6 hours, more than 30 earthquakes had occurred, many in rapid-fire bursts that left little time for the ground to settle. By midday, the count had climbed past 40. The catalog entries formed a dense timeline with 10:02, 10:09, 10:13, each quake separated by minutes, sometimes just seconds. The sequence painted a picture of restless movement beneath the surface, with no obvious main shock to anchor the activity. Instead, the swarm unfolded as a series of near-equal jolts, each one a data point in a larger, unfolding story. For the catalog keepers at the USGS and Berkeley Seismological Lab, these timestamps provided the backbone for analysis, a running log of the Bay Area's seismic heartbeat on November 9, 2025. Beneath the neighborhoods of Oakland, Berkeley, and Hayward, the ground is stitched with a complex network of faults. The Hayward Fault runs straight through the heart of the East Bay, tracing a jagged line along the base of the hills. For geologists, this corridor is more than just a mapped hazard. It is the backbone of the region's seismic identity. The November 9th swarm unfolded almost entirely within this zone, its epicenters clustering along the fault's mapped surface trace. Each quake's coordinates, plotted on real-time overlays from the Berkeley Seismological Lab, revealed a tight alignment, a swarm tracing the same path as the fault that last ruptured in 1868. The Hayward is not a minor player. It is considered the most dangerous fault in the Bay Area, responsible for the last major urban earthquake here, a magnitude 6.8 that struck on October 21, 1868. That event toppled buildings from Hayward to San Leandro, cracked the ground for miles, and left a lasting mark on the region's memory. Today, nearly 3 million people live and work along its length, with critical infrastructure such as BART lines, freeways, and water mains crossing or paralleling the fault at dozens of points. The surface trace, visible on geological maps and in some places marked by offset curbs or cracked sidewalks, is a constant reminder of the risk beneath. The November 9th swarm's depth profile adds another layer of context. Most events occurred between 6 and 10 kilometers below the surface, consistent with the Hayward Fault's seismogenic zone, the portion of crust where earthquakes are most likely to start. This spatial overlap is not coincidence. The Hayward is known for both its historic ruptures and its ongoing microseismic activity. In fact, the fault is one of the best studied in North America, monitored by dense arrays of seismometers and GPS stations. Data from the swarm fed directly into these systems, allowing researchers at the Berkeley Seismological Lab and the USGS to compare the current activity against decades of records. When a swarm like this lights up the East Bay, scientists look for patterns that might reveal whether the fault is simply releasing built-up stress in small increments or signaling something larger. The location, directly along the Hayward's map trace, matters. It ties the raw numbers of the event catalog to the physical structures that define the region's seismic hazard. The 1868 rupture remains the benchmark, but every new cluster of quakes adds to the evolving story of the Bay Area's restless faults. Earthquake swarms in the Bay Area have long puzzled scientists, sparking debate over what actually drives these clusters of small quakes. Some researchers point to the phenomenon of aseismic creep, slow, steady movement along a fault that releases stress in tiny increments. Strain meter data from the Hayward Fault, for example, often captures subtle shifts that never rise to the level of a felt earthquake, but can still trigger bursts of microseismicity. Others argue that transient pulses of groundwater or deep crustal fluids might lubricate fault zones, setting off a rapid sequence of minor tremors. In these cases, seismologists look for tightly clustered hypocenters and nearly identical waveforms, hallmarks of quakes born from a shared fluid-driven source. There is also the possibility of brittle rock fracturing, where a patch of crust weakened by previous quakes or stress transfer from neighboring faults suddenly gives way in a flurry of small slips. Each of these mechanisms leaves its own fingerprint in the seismic record, and experts often disagree about which is at play. During the November 9th swarm, waveform diagnostics showed high similarity between events, suggesting a common trigger, but the debate remains unresolved. Looking back, the Bay Area has seen similar episodes. The 2021 San Leandro swarm produced a tight cluster of shallow events, but seismicity faded without escalation. In 1988, a swarm near Fremont drew headlines and expert scrutiny, yet no larger quake followed. Most clusters like these end quietly, serving as reminders of the region's restless geology rather than warnings of imminent disaster. By weighing real-time data against decades of precedent, scientists aim to keep public concern rooted in evidence, not speculation. Shaking woke residents before dawn, but by midday, the Bay Area's daily rhythms had mostly returned. In North Oakland, a homeowner described hearing dishes rattle in sequence, while in Berkeley, another checked basement anchor bolts as a precaution. Across the East Bay, the most visible response came from transit and city agencies. BART imposed temporary slow orders on trains passing through the Trans-Bay Tube, citing caution after the latest seismic readings. Inspection teams fanned out to check bridges, viaducts, and older masonry buildings, particularly along the Hayward Fault corridor. No major damage was reported, and service interruptions were brief, limited to reduced speeds and a few delayed routes. Emergency managers in Oakland and Berkeley confirmed field crews conducted rapid visual checks throughout the morning. Their protocols, shaped by past earthquakes, focus on critical infrastructure, especially water mains and elevated roadways that cross known fault lines. Public advisories urged residents to inspect homes for new cracks or gas leaks, but no injuries or significant property loss surfaced in the hours after the swarm. For many, the experience was unsettling but familiar. Households with seismic retrofits expressed more confidence, while neighbors without upgrades reported higher anxiety and uncertainty. Local officials emphasized readiness over alarm, repeating the standard advice: review emergency kits, know evacuation routes, and stay tuned to official updates. U.S. Geological Survey scientists delivered the core risk verdict by midday. Their models showed no evidence of escalating foreshock activity or migration toward locked fault segments. In a public statement, the agency reported that the probability of a major earthquake in the immediate aftermath remained unchanged, well within the Bay Area's usual background risk. The message was clear: remain alert, not alarmed. The swarm, though dramatic on seismographs, posed no immediate threat of a larger rupture. Beneath the Bay Area, pressure builds unseen, unpredictable. Over 7 million people live atop active faults, with experts warning a major quake is inevitable in coming decades. Preparedness is not a choice, but a necessity, because in this region, the ground never really sleeps.